Mr. Yang, do you think there's already enough evidence out there to impeach the president? Please respond.
I support impeachment, but we shouldn't have any illusions that impeaching Donald Trump will, one, be successful, or two, erase the problems that got him elected in 2016. We're standing in the great state of Ohio, the ultimate purple state, the ultimate bellwether state. Why did Donald Trump win your state by 8 points? Because we got rid of 300,000 manufacturing jobs in your towns, and we're not stopping there. How many of you have noticed stores closing where you work and live here in Ohio? Raise your hands. It's not just you. Amazon alone is closing 30% of America's stores and malls, soaking up $20 billion in business while paying zero in taxes. These are the problems that got Donald Trump elected, the fourth industrial revolution. And that is going to accelerate and grow more serious regardless of who is in the Oval Office. The fact is, Donald Trump, when we're talking about him, we are losing. We need to present a new vision, and that even includes talking about impeaching Donald Trump.
Mr. Yang.
So when he brings up the idea that Donald Trump being impeached isn't going to solve all of the problems that a lot of Americans are facing. We're still going to see a loss in jobs due to automation. We're still going to see all of these different societal problems that helped him get elected in the first place. He does a good job there of just staying on message and just pounding that idea that we need to focus on the economy, focus on making sure that we solve those main problems.
And your main solution to job loss from automation is a universal basic income. Why is giving people $1,000 a month better than Sanders' plan to guaranteeing them a job?
I am for the spirit of a federal jobs guarantee, but you have to look at how it would actually materialize in practice. What are the jobs? Who manages you? What if you don't like your job? What if you're not good at your job? The fact is, most Americans do not want to work for the federal government. And saying that that is the vision of the economy of the 21st century, to me, is not a vision that most Americans would embrace. Also, Senator Sanders' description of a federal jobs guarantee does not take into account the work of people like my wife, who's at home with our 2 boys, one of whom is autistic. We have a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month. It actually recognizes the work that is happening in our families and our communities. It helps all Americans transition. Because the fact is, and you know this in Ohio, if you rely upon the federal government to target its resources, you wind up with failed retraining programs and jobs that no one wants. When we put the money into our hands, we can build a trickle-up economy. From our people, our families, and our communities up, it will enable us to do the kind of work that we want to do. This is the sort of positive vision in response to the fourth industrial revolution that we have to embrace as a party.
Okay, keep in mind, I really like Bernie Sanders. I've read his book, Our Revolution. I think he's a smart guy. I think he has good motives, and he was my preferred candidate up until I started studying more about Andrew Yang and reading his books. I'm reading right now The War on Normal People. But Andrew Yang is right in bringing up like the federal jobs program. That is not the vision we want. With universal basic income, people are going to be more able to start businesses with that money. We can see a lot of small businesses doing well. That's what makes up a good economy, is a lot of competitive small businesses instead of these monstrous, massive corporations. And so even though Bernie's federal jobs program, it would potentially stimulate the economy, a lot of people want to have the freedom to invest, and they want to have the freedom to try and create products and try and be innovative and do something new. And Andrew Yang's program would allow that. Also, a nice wordplay by Yang in saying a trickle-up economy. People called Reaganomics a trickle-down economy, and so Yang just having a good catchphrase or a good kind of buzzword for his idea with trickle up.
Senator Warren, you wrote that blaming job loss on automation is, quote, a good story, except it's not really true. So should workers here in Ohio not be worried about losing their jobs to automation?
So the data show that we've had a lot of problems with losing jobs, but the principal reason has been bad trade policy.
For child care, instead of having to pay 20% of their income for it.
Senator Warren, I've been talking to Americans around the country about automation, and they're smart. They see what's happening around them. Their Main Street stores are closing. They see a self-serve kiosk in every McDonald's, every grocery store, every CVS. Driving a truck is the most common job in 29 states, including this one. 3.5 million truck drivers in this country, and my friends in California are piloting self-driving trucks. trucks. What is that going to mean for the 3.5 million truckers or the 7 million Americans who work in truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal? Saying this is a rules problem is ignoring the reality that Americans see around us every single day.
Senator Warren, respond, please.
So I understand that what we're all looking for is how we strengthen America's middle class. And actually, I think the thing closest to the universal basic income is Social Security. It's one of the reasons that I put forward a plan to extend the solvency of Social Security by decades. It also has a provision for your wife, for those who stay home to do caregiving for children or for seniors, and creates an opportunity for them to get credit on their Social Security. So after a lifetime of hard work, people are entitled to retire with dignity.
Thank you, Senator Warren.
I see this as an important question about I want to understand the data on this.
Senator, thank you very much.
We're responding to make this work.
Your time is up. I want to give Congresswoman Gabbard a chance to respond.
Thank you. You know, really what this is about is getting to the heart of the fear that is well-founded. As people look to this automation revolution, they look to uncertainty. They don't know how this is going to affect their jobs and their everyday lives. And I agree with my friend Andrew Yang. I think universal basic income is a good idea to help provide that security so that people can have the freedom to make the kinds of choices that they want to see.
Mr. Yang, your response. Would you impose a wealth tax?
Senator Warren is 100% right that we're in the midst of the most extreme winner-take-all economy in history. And a wealth tax makes a lot of sense in principle. The problem is that it's been tried in Germany, France, Denmark, Sweden, and all those countries ended up repealing it because it had massive implementation problems and did not generate the revenue that they'd projected. If we can't learn from the failed experiences of other countries, what can we learn from? We should not be looking to other countries' mistakes. Instead, we should look at what Germany, France, Denmark, and Sweden still have, which is a value-added tax. If we give the American people a tiny slice of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every robot truck mile, every Facebook ad, we can generate hundreds of billions of dollars and then put it into our hands because we know best how to use it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Yang, your response to Putin and Russia.
Of course. We have to look at the chain of events. How did we get here? The fact is we're falling apart at home. So we voted in Donald Trump, and he's now led us down this dangerous path with erratic and unreliable foreign policy. We have to let Russia know, look, we get it. We've tampered with other elections. You've tampered with our elections, and now it has to stop. And if it does not stop, we will take this as an act of hostility against the American people. I believe most Americans would support me on this.
So he's going back and forth with Elizabeth Warren, and she is saying that job loss is not happening from automation, but that it's from bad trade policies. Now, Bernie and people that critique NAFTA, they would agree with this, and there may be some truth to it. There may be job loss from globalization and bad trade policy, but you can't deny that automation is having an impact on the number of jobs that are being lost and the number of jobs that will be lost in the future. Andrew Yang does a good job of bringing up specific examples with kiosks, talking about truck drivers.
Russian hacking of our democracy is an illustration of the 21st century threats. Artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, climate change, loose nuclear material, military drones, and non-state actors. These are the threats that are going to require our administration to catch up in terms of technology. We all know we are decades behind the curve on technology. We saw when Mark Zuckerberg testified at Congress the nature of the questioning. As Commander-in-Chief, I will help pull us forward.
Thank you.
Mark,
and that's going to be a huge responsibility of the next president.
I want to respond to Mr. Yang. I don't see a moral equivalency between our country and Russia. Vladimir Putin is someone who has shot down planes over Ukraine, who has poisoned his opponents, and we have not talked about what we need to do to protect ourselves from Russia invading our election.
Mr. Yang, you want to decriminalize the possession and use of small amounts of opioids, including heroin. How would that solve the crisis?
That's exactly right. And we have to recognize this is a disease of capitalism run amok. There was a point when there were more opiate prescriptions in the state of Ohio than human beings in the state of Ohio. And for some reason, the federal government thought that was appropriate. They ended up levying a $600 million fine against Purdue Pharma, which sounds like a lot of money, until you realize that company made $30 billion. They got a 2% fine. and they killed tens of thousands of Americans 8 an hour. So if the government turned a blind eye to this company spreading a plague among its people, then the least we can do is put the resources to work in our communities so our people have a fighting chance to get well. Even though this is not a money problem, we all know this is a human problem. And part of helping people get the treatment that they need is to let them know that they're not going to be referred to a prison cell. They will be referred to treatment and counseling. I talked to an EMT in New Hampshire, and he said he saves the same addicts over and over again. Because the fact is, after you save someone who's ODing, you just bring them back to their house and they OD again the following week. So we need to decriminalize opiates for personal use. We have to let the country know this is not a personal failing. This was a systemic government failing. And then we need to open up safe consumption and safe injection sites around the country because they save lives.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Let's turn to the growing concerns over the power of big tech companies. Mr. Yang, Senator Warren.
So the point that he brings up, saying to Russia, we know that we've interfered in elections, and now you're doing it to us, and so from this point forward, we're not going to have any more of it. You know, Klobuchar criticizes him, but it's true. The U.S. has interfered in many elections. We overthrew a socialist president in Chile. We've interfered in elections in Central America. We shouldn't try and be hypocrites and claim that other countries are wrongfully doing things that we are. We should move forward and say, from this point forward, no more. We won't interfere in other elections. You don't interfere in ours. If you do, it's an act of aggression. That's objective of Andrew Yang to bring up. Amy Klobuchar saying there's no moral equivalency. She doesn't understand history very well. Even though the U.S. has done many good things, they've committed horrible atrocities before. We did horrible things to people in Iraq and Vietnam. Andrew Yang likely understands this better, and he's more objective than her.
Warren is calling for companies like Facebook, Amazon, and Google to be broken up. Is she right? Does that need to happen?
As usual, Senator Warren is 100% right in diagnosing the problem. There are absolutely excesses in technology, and in some cases, having them divest parts of their business is the right move. But we also have to be realistic that competition doesn't solve all of the problems. It's not like any of us wants to use the fourth best navigation app. That would be like cruel punishment. There's a reason why no one is using Bing today. Sorry, Microsoft, it's true. So it's not like breaking up these big tech companies will revive Main Street businesses around the country. And as the parent of 2 young children, I'm particularly concerned about screen use and its effect on our children. Studies clearly show that we're seeing record levels of anxiety and depression coincident with smartphone adoption and social media use. Breaking up the tech companies does nothing to make our kids healthier. What we have to do is we have to home in on the specific problems we're trying to solve and use 21st century solutions for 21st century problems. Using a 20th century antitrust framework will not work. We need new solutions and a new toolkit. That's the way we can fight back. The best way we can fight back against big tech companies is to say our data is our property. Right now, our data is worth more than oil. How many of you remember getting your data check in the mail? It got lost, it went to Facebook, Amazon, Google. If we say this is our property and we share in the gains, that's the best way we can balance the scales against the big tech companies.
Last week, Ellen DeGeneres was criticized after she and former President George W. Bush were seen laughing together at a football game. Ellen defended their friendship, saying we're all different, and I think that we've forgotten that that's okay, that we're all different. So in that spirit, we'd like you to tell us about a friendship that you've had that would surprise us, what impacts it's had on you and your beliefs. Mr. Yang?
First, I want to thank all the voters tuned in at home. If you don't feel like you answered your you got your question answered tonight, it's understandable. There are 12 of us. I'm going to be answering voter questions for 10 straight hours this Friday. My website, yang2020.com, and if you ask your question tonight, there's a better chance I'll get to it. My surprising friendship. It's been so much fun running for president because I've gotten to meet so many Americans I never would have gotten to meet otherwise. The friendship that sticks out for me is a guy named Fred, who's an avid Trump supporter, a trucker. He let me ride in his truck for hours. He spent some time in jail. I heard about his experiences trying to get other people off of drugs. And I'm happy to say that after our ride together, he actually said that he would move from Donald Trump to my campaign, which was a thrill for me, and we've remained in touch ever since. The truth is that what happened to the 4 million manufacturing workers here in Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Iowa did not care about our political party. The fourth industrial revolution is now migrating from manufacturing workers to retail, call centers, transportation, as well as to white-collar workers like attorneys, pharmacists, and radiologists. It does not care about our party. Donald Trump had a set of solutions in 2016. What did he say? He said, we're going to build a wall, we're going to turn the clock back, we're going to bring the old jobs back. America, we have to do the opposite of all of these things. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society as quickly as possible. We have to evolve in the way we think about ourselves and our work and our value. It is not left, it is not right, it is forward, and that is where we must take the country in 2020.
He stays completely focused on what he should when they bring up the idea of discussing an unlikely friend. You could have just talked about like a Republican that he knows and gets along with, but he talked about a specific Trump supporter that then switched over to him. That was a smart move by him. I want to talk about Ellen DeGeneres and George Bush, though, for a second, just since the moderator brought that up. We praise that as if it's a good thing. We need to just have friendships with those who have different beliefs than us. If it was Ellen DeGeneres and Mitt Romney, I might not think that was a bad thing. Like, that's okay. George Bush is a warmonger. Him and Dick Cheney dragged us into Iraq. You had thousands upon thousands of innocent Iraqis die. You had a lot of innocent Americans die. They deceived the American people, and we should not celebrate Ellen DeGeneres being friends with George W. Bush. The fact that she is on such good terms with him indicates that she really may not understand history. She really may not understand some of these complex problems. She's merely an entertainer. If you like the content from this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. You'll be getting a lot more content from me just with the election and with these topics in general.